Sophia had been working at the restaurant for years, always putting on a warm smile no matter how tough the day was. She had learned to handle rude customers, exhausting shifts, and long hours, all while staying kind and patient. Every night, she wiped down tables, took orders, and made sure every customer felt welcome. But behind that smile was a girl who had sacrificed everything for her family. She had dreams once, big ones, but after losing her parents, she had to step up. Her younger brother was in college, and she worked 2 shifts every day just to make sure he had a future. Tonight was just another shift or so, she thought. The restaurant was packed, buzzing with chatter and laughter. People came and went, enjoying their meals. Sophia, as always, focused on her job, making sure every customer was served with kindness. She didn't know that by the end of the night, everything would change. A group of wealthy, arrogant men would humiliate her in front of everyone. But what neither she nor they realized was that someone powerful was watching. And what he did next, no one could have predicted. Daniel had worked hard to build his business from the ground up. He wasn't born into wealth. He earned every dollar through sweat and determination. But despite his success, he never dressed to impress. He preferred simple clothes, the kind that made him look like an average man. One evening, Daniel walked into an upscale restaurant, craving a quiet meal after a long day. The moment he stepped inside, he felt the stares. The waiters, dressed in crisp uniforms, exchanged glances, whispering among themselves. To them, he didn't belong in a place like this. As Daniel took a seat, a young, arrogant waiter named Jake approached him. Instead of greeting him with respect, Jake smirked. "Are you sure you can afford to eat here?" he asked, loud enough for nearby diners to hear. The room fell silent. Some customers chuckled, while others looked away awkwardly. But Daniel didn't get angry. He simply smiled and said, "Bring me the best dish you have." What happened next would leave everyone speechless. By the end of the night, Jake would regret ever judging a man by his appearance. The waiter, Mark, rolled his eyes as he placed the menu in front of Daniel. He didn't bother to hide his annoyance. In his mind, this man was wasting his time. "Everything here is expensive," Mark said, crossing his arms. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" A few customers snickered. Others turned their attention to see how Daniel would react. But Daniel stayed calm. He had faced tougher situations in life than a rude waiter. With a relaxed smile, he flipped through the menu and pointed at the most expensive dish. "I'll have this," he said. Mark scoffed. "That's our finest meal." "It's not cheap." Daniel nodded. "Good. I'll take 2, actually." Mark's smirk faltered. He wasn't expecting that. Hesitantly, he jotted down the order and walked away, still convinced Daniel was bluffing. Little did he know, this night was about to teach him a lesson he'd never forget. And by the time he realized who Daniel really was, it would be far too late to take back his words. Samantha stood behind the counter, tapping her nails impatiently as an elderly man, Mr. Johnson, pulled out a handful of crumpled bills. His hands trembled slightly as he counted. "Hurry up," Samantha sighed, rolling her eyes. "There's a line, you know." The customers behind him shifted uncomfortably. Some whispered, while others avoided eye contact. But Mr. Johnson remained calm. He had been through worse in his long life. Finally, he handed her the money. Samantha snatched it, barely glancing at him. "Next," she called out, ignoring the man as he stepped aside. But then, the store manager walked in. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on Mr. Johnson. "Sir, it's so good to see you again," the manager said, shaking his hand with deep respect. Samantha's stomach dropped. She had no idea who she had just been rude to. And when she learned the truth, she would wish she had treated him differently. Mark pushed his mop across the shiny floor as students rushed past him, barely noticing he was there. Some whispered, some snickered. Why would anyone want to be a janitor? Jason, the school's most popular kid, muttered to his friends, "Must be the worst job ever." Mark didn't react. He just kept cleaning. Later that day, the principal made a surprise announcement over the intercom. "We are honored to welcome a special guest today, one of the most successful businessmen in the city. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Mark Reynolds." The students turned toward the stage, jaws dropping as Mark, the janitor they ignored all year, stepped forward in a sharp suit. Jason's face turned red. He had no idea the janitor he mocked was actually the school's biggest donor, the man who had built their new library. Mark smiled at the crowd. "Never judge someone by their job," he said. "Because you never know who they really are." The room fell silent. Jason sank into his chair, realizing he had made a huge mistake. David adjusted his glasses and took a deep breath before stepping into the restaurant. Dressed in simple clothes, he looked like an ordinary customer. The waiters barely paid attention to him, but one server, Mike, rolled his eyes. Another cheap customer," he whispered to his coworker. "Bet he won't even leave a tip." David politely ordered his meal, but Mike barely put any effort into serving him. He sighed loudly, slammed the plate down, and walked away without another word. An hour later, the restaurant manager walked in, looking nervous. "Attention, everyone," he announced. "We have an important guest today. Please welcome our new CEO, Mr. David Thompson." The entire staff turned toward David. Mike's face turned pale. David stood up and smiled. "I believe great service should be given to everyone, no matter what they look like." He turned to Mike. "And I think we need to have a serious conversation about your attitude." The restaurant fell silent. Mike gulped, realizing he had just made the worst mistake of his life. James Carter sat on a park bench, his old military jacket worn and faded. People walked past him without a second glance, treating him like he didn't exist. A young businessman, Eric, passed by and scoffed. "Just another homeless guy," he muttered. Minutes later, an older man in a sharp suit approached. "General Carter?" he said with respect. Eric stopped in his tracks, his face full of confusion. "General," the suited man saluted. "Sir, we've been searching for you. The city wants to honor you for your bravery in the war." People around them started whispering. A woman gasped. "Wait, I read about him. He saved an entire squad in battle." Eric's stomach twisted. He had just insulted a real hero. James slowly stood up. "I never wanted recognition," he said softly. "But if my story reminds people to respect all veterans, then I'll share it." The crowd erupted into applause. Eric's face burned with shame as he realized he had judged a hero without knowing the truth. Michael Turner walked into the fancy restaurant, his clothes simple but neat. He just wanted a nice meal, but the waiter, Alex, took one look at him and smirked. "Are you sure you can afford to eat here?" Alex asked, his voice dripping with arrogance. Michael stayed calm. "I'll just take a menu," he said politely. As he ate, whispers spread through the restaurant. A group of well-dressed men at another table kept glancing at Michael, clearly excited about something. Then, the restaurant owner himself walked in. Spotting Michael, he rushed over and shook his hand. "Mr. Turner, it's an honor to have you here. We are thrilled to partner with your company." Alex's face turned pale. "Company?" A nearby customer gasped. "Wait. Michael Turner? The billionaire investor?" Suddenly, Alex realized his huge mistake. He had judged a man by his appearance, not knowing he was in the presence of someone truly powerful. Michael stood up, smiling. "Treat everyone with respect. You never know who's sitting at your table." The entire restaurant fell silent as Alex wished he could disappear.